Live from London, this is BBC News. President Zelensky reveals details of the latest draft deal to end the war in Ukraine that has been negotiated with the US. Russia is currently reviewing the plans. European Union countries condemn a US decision to impose visa bans on 5 people, including a former top EU tech regulator. A British teenager has been reportedly stabbed to death in Portugal. A 6.1 magnitude earthquake has struck Taiwan. There are no immediate reports of damage. Festivities return to Bethlehem in the occupied West Bank after being scaled back for 2 years due to the war in Gaza. This is The Scene Live. And Santa is on his way. We track his movements live. Hello and welcome. I'm Geeta Gurmuthy. Thanks for being with us. We begin with developments from Kiev. President Zelensky has revealed details of a draft deal to try and end the war in Ukraine that has been negotiated with the US and is currently being reviewed by Russia. The 20-point document includes security guarantees for Ukraine from the US, NATO and Europe. But Mr. Zelensky says the question of territory is still unresolved. He signalled a willingness to create a demilitarised zone monitored by peacekeepers. Under the new plan, Ukraine would stage a presidential election only after signing any deal. Moscow has so far not shown willingness to comprise on all such points. The Russia editor for BBC Monitoring, Vitaly Shevchenko, explains the options as he sees it for trying to resolve the issues.
The issue of whether Ukraine will have to give up territory for a promise of peace, that's still unresolved. President Zelensky said that there are currently 2 options that are being considered. Option 1, which Ukraine seems to favour, is freezing the current contact line. The second option, for which Russia has been pushing and which the United States appears to be supporting, would require a withdrawal of Ukrainian forces from the eastern region of Donbass. Now, Volodymyr Zelensky said that we really don't like the word withdrawal. So the way the Americans are framing it is that there will be a demilitarized zone or an economic zone of some sort in Donbass. But it's essentially amounts to the same thing, that Ukrainians will have to pull back from their positions currently held in Donbass. Volodymyr Zelensky said that if this is the option that gets agreed on, it will then be put to a referendum in Ukraine, which may possibly coincide with a presidential election, which is another point backed by the Russians and apparently the Americans. So what is Ukraine getting in exchange? Volodymyr Zelensky said that there would be security guarantees provided by the United States, NATO, and Europe. He said these guarantees would be, and I quote, mirrored by Article 5. They will resemble Article 5 very closely. So Article 5, as we know, is the article in NATO rules that says an attack on one is an attack on all. And that suggests that should Russia attack Ukraine again, all those guarantors of security will somehow respond. Quite how they will respond is not clear. The ceasefire or the end of hostilities will be monitored, according to this draft, by an international force, a military force, and this is a point that Russia has rejected very strongly, has been saying for months that it completely does not accept any sort of deployment of Western troops to Ukraine. So what we've got here is a plan, or a draft plan, worked out by the Americans and the Ukrainians with a lot of things that haven't been ironed out, but it's a plan that Russia has not accepted. Parts of it are extremely unlikely to be accepted by Russia. The latest we've heard from Moscow is that the Russian negotiator Kirill Dmitriev, who also held talks separately with Americans in Florida. He said that he reported back to Vladimir Putin about what he discussed with American negotiators, and the Russian president is considering the suggestions.
Well, the Russian authorities say 2 police officers have been killed by an explosion while trying to arrest a person in Moscow. An official statement said the suspect also died when they detonated a device near a police car. The blast happened in the same area where a senior Russian general was killed by a car bomb on Monday. Ukraine hasn't said whether it was involved in Fanil Savarov's death. France, Germany and the European Union have all condemned a decision by the US to impose visa bans on the former EU Commissioner Thierry Breton and 4 others involved in regulating tech companies. The US State Department announced the move on Tuesday, accusing Mr. Breton and the others of leading efforts to censor Americans online. Mr. Breton, a former top European Commission tech regulator, suggested a witch hunt was taking place. France's President Macron has launched a blistering attack, posting on social media that the measures amounted to intimidation and coercion aimed at undermining European digital sovereignty. The EU Commission also issued a strong condemnation, saying it's requested clarification from the US authorities. Well, I'm joined by Max Schrems, who is founder and chairman of the European Centre for Digital Rights. Thanks very much for being with us. Just first of all, what do you make of the fact that we've seen these bans, these visa bans?
Unfortunately, we've seen like an increasing, let's say, power move by the US when it comes to any kind of digital rights in Europe. So far, the European Union was a bit the forefighter for like having digital legislation in both areas, not just hate speech. And the US has pushed back before. That was partly something where there were reports that it's now linked to trade barriers, for example, in the sense like, if you regulate us, we're going to put tariffs on you. And now it seems that we have additional elements where that goes on after individuals, where you're a commissioner of the European Union, probably that's part of the risk that you're taking. But it now also goes against individual NGOs or heads of NGOs. That's a whole different part.
I should just say the line to you is a little bit difficult to make out, but we can still follow what you're saying, so apologies for that. But Max, just explain for us a bit about the differences between the EU and US approach on this, because it's social media, it's AI, and it has an impact on profitability, doesn't it, for the big tech companies?
Exactly. Europe has kind of regulated almost anything that these companies make money from, be it now AI is the latest version, but already 15 years ago, we started with GDPR, like the privacy law, where we limit how much you can use personal data, for example, to actually then make money from that in simple terms. The in between is now the whole topic about hate speech, where Europe traditionally has a very different approach than the US. And quite frankly, the US probably has a different approach than all other Western countries or democratic countries of like extreme free speech, while in Europe that was always to a certain extent limited. So I'm, for example, right now based in Austria, and we obviously have a prohibition on denying the Holocaust for historic reasons. And that will not change. And the US now frames that as limitation of the freedom of speech, so to say, and tries to kind of go after governments, but especially interesting now also NGOs. And that is something where I think in Europe we also have to be a bit more cautious about what we do. Is we so far outsource a lot of these decisions about what is hate speech, what is not, what should be flagged, what should be probably taken down, to NGOs. That was, for example, what they call a trusted flagger. So neither the companies nor the governments wanted to do it. So they gave it to NGOs, and now it seems that these NGOs get a good crosshairs of the US government, and they just run on donations and are usually not the guys that can really report that harmed by the US.
Okay, Max Schrems, thank you very much indeed for joining us from the European Centre for Digital Rights, and again, apologies for the quality of that line. Now, moving on, authorities in the US have been urged to move much more quickly in releasing files about the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The latest tranche of documents contained thousands of pages, including a number which appear to refer to Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, the former Duke of York, and to Donald Trump. Both men have always denied any wrongdoing. Senior Democrats in the US have said the Department of Justice should publish more details about Epstein's potential co-conspirators. Appearing in the files does not indicate any wrongdoing. This report from Aruna Iyengar.
The latest release of documents seems to shed more light on the relationship between Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, Jeffrey Epstein and his friend Ghislaine Maxwell. A number of emails released are from a person who signs himself A and is referred to as the Invisible Man. The exchange appears to be between Andrew Mountbatten Windsor and Ghislaine Maxwell. One email sent from Balmoral in 2001 is thought to be from the then Prince Andrew. A writes that he's at Balmoral summer camp for the royal family. He later asks, "Have you found me some new inappropriate friends?" There's no evidence of illegal activity from these emails on anyone's part.
Then I would be duty-bound to do so.
The latest release reveals a formal request from the Department of Justice in 2020, asking for assistance from British authorities to interview Prince Andrew relating to 2 criminal investigations, one of those related to Epstein. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor has repeatedly denied any wrongdoing.
Most people who are not princes or former princes, when asked if they had information that they could contribute to an investigation of child sexual abuse and sex trafficking of underage children from or at a site that they had visited, most people would say, sure, I'd be happy to help.
President Trump's name appears more in the latest release. One email from a federal prosecutor said, Donald Trump travelled on Epstein's private jet many more times than has previously been reported. He's listed as a passenger on at least 8 flights between 1993 and 1996, including at least 4 flights on which Ghislaine Maxwell was also present. On one flight in 1993, he and Epstein are the only 2 listed passengers. On another, the only 3 passengers are Epstein, Trump and then 20-year-old, whose name is redacted. The release of these files is in the name of transparency, but the Department of Justice has also urged caution in how disclosed documents are interpreted, as the Epstein files do include documented false reports and forgeries. It has also come under fire because many documents are redacted, with names and information blacked out, something that's been criticised by Epstein survivors.
Please do your job. It is very simple. Redact our names and unredact the powerful, the elite men that are out there and that are continuing to doing these horrible things to these women they have done it to us and they will continue to do so. Please look at us as your children.
The White House is facing intense criticism over failing to meet the legal deadline last week for the release of all the documents. It's also being accused of manipulating the releases to protect the reputation of the president, but he has repeatedly denied wrongdoing in regards to Epstein. Aruna Iyengar, BBC News.
Around the world and across the UK, this is BBC News. Welcome back. Now, Bethlehem is marking Christmas for the first time since the beginning of the war in Gaza. Following the recent ceasefire, celebrations have returned, symbolised by the lighting of the city's traditional giant Christmas tree. Whilst festivities return in the occupied West Bank, conditions are still difficult in Gaza, including for its tiny Christian community. Our correspondent Shaima Khalil sent us this report.
too young to remember peace, old enough to understand fear. For more than 2 years, these children have lived amid destruction and death. This war has battered their young lives and reduced their city to ruins. After the recent ceasefire, prayers rise inside Gaza's Holy Family Church for this fragile pause in fighting to hold. 20-year-old Hilda has sheltered here with her family since the beginning of the war. What was once only a place of worship is now also their refuge. A church that has itself endured bloodshed from Israeli bombardment. It's impossible to celebrate, she tells me, but even here they try, holding on to small rituals, any semblance of festive cheer.
How's Christmas this time round after the ceasefire? Do you feel safer?
No. We can still hear the sounds of pumping, the sounds of shells. I can see the pumpings are very, very close and near to us. The most important thing that me and all my family are okay, and that's the Christmas for me now.
What do you miss most about Christmas before the war?
My home. To be honest, my home, my memories with my family inside our home, how we all of us joined the table of the dinner, our meals, the gifts we used to give to each other. We lost everything. Yani, I really miss the memories there.
Here, where the Christmas story began, the mood has shifted this year.
For the first time since the war in Gaza began, Bethlehem is marking the holiday season again, and Manger Square is buzzing. Music blasts from time to time. I spotted Santa just over there, and of course the famous Christmas tree is back. And yet the festivities are muted as the shadow of the war still hangs heavily here.
Every tree light in Gaza was present, whether it is in the prayers or the mentioning of the hopes for Gaza to be released and for peace to come and the rebuilding of the whole Gaza Strip. So this year we all decided, and I was at least at 3-4 different tree lighting here in Bethlehem and around the towns in Jerusalem and in Bethlehem, basically declaring that we will not let death or the shadow of war take hope from us. I think this is more about hope, it's more about resilience, and more about telling we exist, we are here. Christians and Muslims and everyone who lives here wants to declare that we are people who love life.
Inside the Church of the Nativity, a small number of pilgrims and tourists have returned, just a fraction of the crowds before the war. But after 2 years of near emptiness, their presence is deeply felt and desperately needed. As light fills the heart of the holy city, it brings a fleeting spark of joy, a fragile hope resting on a fragile ceasefire, and a Christmas still shaped by loss and grief. Shaima Khalil, BBC News, Bethlehem.
Well, we are bringing you pictures all day from Bethlehem live, where the celebrations are continuing. As you can see, lots of crowds gathering. It is the first time in 2 years for people to gather. The famous Christmas tree is up. We've seen the marching bands, and there is a midnight mass gathering later today. And earlier I spoke to our correspondent there, Emil Nada.
Well, we're very glad to be joined by the Mayor of Bethlehem, Meher Kanawati. I hope the viewers can hear us above the sound of the marching bands. Down below is a Manger Square. They're heading into the Church of the Nativity, where tonight midnight mass will be taking place. Now, Mayor, Bethlehem is obviously home to one of the largest Palestinian Christian communities, but we haven't seen celebrations like this for 2 years, with many people's minds on loved ones in Gaza. Can you give us a feeling, encapsulate the feeling here today, what today means to people here?
You know, the message this season or this Christmas was going to be the message of hope, the message that people needed to hear, to have, in order to have hope for a better tomorrow. Yes, we are dying in Gaza and in other cities in Palestine. Yes, we are targeted. Yes, we are facing immense hardships because of the occupation. But at the same time, we also love to live, love life, and eagerly looking forward to great peace and justice that will prevail here in this land, so we can share it and prosper and also live in dignity and live in peace.
And we can see obviously that today's celebrations, it's a day for children as well. It's a day for young people. There are 23 marching bands, you told me. Can you tell me about the role of young people in the Christmas celebrations here in Bethlehem today?
You know, after 2 years of silence, reigniting the spirit of Christmas brought hope to the people of Bethlehem and to all of the people of Palestine, including Gaza. You know, here we have, as you said, 23 groups of scouts, 4,500 scouts are marching in Bethlehem. We have the hotels are totally overbooked in the city of Bethlehem. And this is also another message that Bethlehem is safe and everything in Bethlehem is waiting for pilgrims and tourists to come back. And this will help strengthening the resilience of the locals.
That was the Mayor of Bethlehem there speaking to Amir Nada. We will be following those events in Bethlehem all day. Now, reports from Portugal say a teenage British boy has been stabbed to death. 13-year-old Alfie Hallett died following the incident that took place in the city of Tomar in the centre of the city. With me is our correspondent Jonathan Josephs. Jonathan, what more do we know?
Geeta, details are very much still emerging of this, but it seems like a rather tragic Christmas for this one family in particular. As you say, this happened in a place called Cassis, which is on the outskirts of Tomar, which is about 2 hours north of Lisbon. We've had a statement from the Portuguese police which confirms the death of a 13-year-old boy and that he was indeed stabbed to death. The local media have named him as Alfie Hallett, and they also say that his mother was a 43-year-old English lady. She's been treated in hospital, and police say that she showed signs of having been restrained and assaulted. Now, neighbours have spoken to local media, and they say that they were alerted by shouting. It seems there was also an explosion and that the mother had been tied up but had managed to escape. Now, when police arrived, they say that the alleged perpetrator, who the police say was the mother's former partner, had blown himself up, possibly with a gas canister, and that explosion killed him and also injured a police officer. Now, the police have also told us that the alleged perpetrator had already served a prison sentence for aggravated homicide, and the family had been flagged following domestic violence cases which had been registered in the last few years. Now, it seems that Alfie was a keen basketball player, and the local club have paid tribute to him on social media, saying that he'd passed away and that when he played his last game on Saturday, he had played so well, as if he knew it might be his last game. They wanted to say that how much they love him and that Alfie will always be in their hearts. Now, here in the UK, the Foreign Office have told us that they are in contact with the local authorities following an incident in Portugal, and that they stand by ready to provide consular support.
Jonathan Josephs, many thanks indeed. A 6.1 magnitude earthquake has struck Taiwan's southeastern coastal county of Taitung. The quake struck at a depth of just over 10 kilometres. It caused some buildings to shake further north in the capital Taipei, but the island's weather administration says there are no immediate reports of damage. Most advent calendars will be going in the recycling bin after today, but not in Calstock on the Cornwall-Devon border in southwest England. That's because they've turned the whole village into an advent calendar with a new window display appearing each day of December so far. Each one lights up at 5 o'clock in the evening, and because it's in southwest England, there's an extra surprise hidden in each display. A tiny pottery Cornish pasty made by local school children. Let me just take you back to Bethlehem, because these are the latest live pictures, and we can see there in the centre the Latin Patriarch of Jerusalem, Cardinal Pier Battista Pizzaballa, the Latin Patriarch there of Jerusalem, greeting the crowds, and many people have turned up for the first time in 2 years, where Bethlehem is now celebrating once again Christmas and Christmas Eve, with the midnight mass expected later on this evening. The famous Christmas tree is up. We've seen all the marching bands gathering. You can hear the music, and extraordinary images that we've seen today. We heard from the mayor earlier saying the hotels are full and they're welcoming tourists who, of course, have been much missed amid the regional conflict there. We'll keep you across all of that. Let me show you some pictures now here of Mount Kilauea erupting in Hawaii. The summit eruption reached its 1-year anniversary yesterday as episode 39 brought fountains reaching more than 1,000 feet, while a glow and intermittent spatter were seen throughout the day from the north and south vents. And then they started shooting fountains right up into the air. Again, more amazing pictures there for you. We're back in a few minutes. Stay with us. I'm Geeta Gurmurthy.
Hello there. No big changes weather-wise day on day as we head throughout the Christmas period. It's looking cold, dry. There'll be lots of wintry sunshine and there'll be a chilly easterly wind blowing very brisk towards the south. You can see that tight squeeze on the isobars here. High pressure remains dominant, so it should stay dry. But with the wind coming in from the North Sea, then there's always more cloud towards the eastern facing coast. Still some more lingering fog perhaps across northwest Scotland as we head through this afternoon. Now, with the added wind chill, it's going to feel colder than these numbers suggest, and they're already lower than they were yesterday, 5 to 8 degrees Celsius for most, with possibly gale force gusts blowing through parts of the Channel coast. Now, through tonight, we'll keep the same pattern. There will be some areas of cloud, especially in the east, but some long clear spells, again some more fog across northwest Scotland. But in the sheltered spots, there could be a bit of frost developing, perhaps with temperatures dropping below freezing for some. So there could be something white on the ground into Christmas Day morning, and just the small chance of 1 or 2 snowflakes falling, particularly across the Channel Islands if we do get some showers here. But the air is dry. There'll be lots of wintry sunshine for Christmas Day itself. Again, some areas of cloud for northeast England and across eastern Scotland, but it's going to feel sub-zero for many with the added wind chill towards the south. Same again on Boxing Day. For the full forecast, check the BBC Weather app.
Outdoor football here in Greenland can't be a year-round sport. So when summer does arrive, it's time for the so-called toughest tournament in the world. 5 games in just 6 days to be crowned the champion of Greenland. Find out more on BBC News.
There is a flurry of diplomatic activity this holiday season. After nearly 4 years of war, world leaders are trying to bring peace to Ukraine. But people here are doubtful that a deal will bring lasting peace. Join me, Samira Hussein, on BBC News.
I'm in Malaysian Borneo, my family's homeland, tasting a tropical bounty of indigenous ingredients and learning how tribal traditions and international influences are celebrated in this region's cuisine. Join me, Nick Queck, for Discovering the World's Table on BBC News.
The audience is the unique ingredient of Question Time.
We're both teachers. We love a debate, don't we?
Yeah. You go to different parts of the country.
I literally live about 3 minutes down the road.
I play for the local brass band.
It's a great formula. There's nothing else like it.
It's still nice to be able to say something that's really important to me.
It gives me the chance to actually take politicians to account.
Bringing power to the people. Question Time. Watch on BBC iPlayer.
My Iranian father learned to speak English by listening to the World Service. My grandparents, when they moved to England, learned the language and culture by watching the news. The BBC was always on in the Mashiri house, and my dream actually was to be a BBC News presenter. I want to be for others what the BBC was for us, a trusted source of stability and hope. For me, trust is about presence, about fostering relationships all around the world over years. So when a story breaks, we're not chasing a lead, we're already there. I'm Marianne Mashiri on The World Today for BBC News. Love saying that.
This is BBC News, the headlines. President Zelensky reveals details of the latest draft deal to end the war in Ukraine that has been negotiated with the US. Russia is currently reviewing the proposal. After the biggest release of files so far related to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, campaigners are urging US authorities to release them more quickly. Pregnant women in the UK are urged to get their flu vaccine now, as leading doctors warn that they and newborns are amongst the most vulnerable to the virus. A last-minute rush as millions in the UK travel home for the Christmas holidays will be live in Lancashire. 100 years since Winnie the Pooh's first appearance in the UK, fans prepare for a year of centenary celebrations. Hello, I'm Geeta Gurumuthy. Thanks for being with us. More now on the calls for the Trump administration to move more quickly in releasing all the files related to the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Many of the documents released on Tuesday are redacted, with names and information blacked out. The Justice Department is facing criticism from lawmakers on both sides of the political aisle over the amount of redactions, which the law specifically states can only be done to protect the identity of victims or active criminal investigations. Well, earlier I spoke to Dr. Richard Johnson, a senior lecturer in US politics and policy at Queen Mary University of London, who explained the challenges that Congress faces in trying to get more files released more quickly.
Well, the question now is, what's the pressure that's going to be put on the Trump administration and more specifically the Department of Justice to release more files, and at what speed? And there is a bit of difficulty here, I think, from the perspective of Congress, because if the Attorney General Pam Bondi has not exercised good faith in releasing the full files in a timely manner as accords with the Epstein Files Transparency Act, what actually is the recourse that Congress can take? Well, one recourse is that they could try to threaten to impeach the Attorney General, but that's going to be I think a non-starter, because you need 2/3 of the Senate to do so, and I don't think you'll find those numbers among Republican senators. So there's some discussion about holding the Attorney General in contempt, which is a maneuver that only requires one chamber, the House of Representatives, to vote a simple majority to do so. You probably could find the numbers if you had all the Democrats and a small handful of Republicans vote to hold the Attorney General in contempt. But then the next trouble is that when you find an official in contempt, you refer that contempt charge to the Department of Justice. And so the Department of Justice, the Attorney General, is not going to prosecute herself. Congress could try to bring this directly to the courts using their own general counsel. But in the past, the courts have often said that these types of issues are what they call political questions, non-justiciable, and are to be resolved through the political process. And that, I think, is what we will likely end up seeing, is that this is just going to be a match of words, strongly put, I'm sure, and political pressure. But in terms of what the legal response for members of Congress is to this, I think it's actually rather limited.
Yeah, I mean, they have said, haven't they, that due to the number of documents, that's why they're releasing it in batches, and President Trump, of course, repeatedly denying himself any wrongdoing. In terms of the drip feeding of it and over the Christmas and New Year period, what's the impact of that, do you think, in terms of the timing of it?
Of course, the act itself was written with not a date, but a number of days in mind. And the reason that it's in effect coincidental that we've run up against Christmas with the deadline, because the act was able to be passed through Congress as a result of the end of the federal government shutdown and a member of Congress being sworn in after Congress reopened in November, and that start the 30-day clock. So in a sense, it's a little unlucky from the perspective of those who wanted this to gain maybe more sustained attention, that the deadline has run up just before Christmas. There is, of course, I think, a legitimate argument to be said that this is a very, very labor-intensive process. There are many, many thousands of files, many gigabytes of files, some extremely sensitive that you wouldn't want in the public domain because of the nature of vulnerable individuals involved in those. So it is time-consuming. It is something you there's not a standard process. I don't think you can trust AI or something to do this. You need human beings to do this. But what I think throws it into question about the good faith nature of this is, why did the Department of Justice have to put some kind of covering letter earlier this week saying that specifically Donald Trump, when his name appears, we should not take any accusations against him credibly. Either say that about everyone who's been named, or don't say it at all. But if the Department of Justice is just putting out a covering note to effectively spin the release in favor of the president, then that makes us start to wonder whether they are doing it in a way that is timed to be most favorable to the president.
Well, that was Dr. Richard Johnson. Now, leading doctors and midwives are urging pregnant women to get vaccinated against the flu. Healthcare professionals said both pregnant women and newborn babies are amongst the most vulnerable to the illness this winter, with the jab offering protection for both, adding that even later on in the flu season, the vaccine still offers vital protection. Tim Moffat reports.
Even though the rise in the number of flu infections appears to be levelling off, there's a warning and a plea from midwives and doctors. Pregnant women should get the flu vaccine as soon as possible, they say, as the impact of flu can be much worse on them and newborn babies. Royal colleges representing more than 90,000 health professionals have come together to deliver the message. The Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, the Royal College of Midwives and the Royal College of Paediatrics and Child Health are urging pregnant women to talk to their maternity teams or their GP, adding that even later on in the flu season, the vaccine still offers vital protection.
It's really important for pregnant women to get the flu jab. When you're pregnant, your immune system is not as robust as it is when you're not. So that means if you do get the flu, even if you're young and healthy, you're more likely to have complications, sometimes bronchitis, sometimes things that mean you need to end up in hospital. The flu jab is safe. We've been using it for over a decade and people have been fine having it. And the other benefit is for baby, it helps baby's immune system be stronger as well. So when they're born, they carry some of that protection from their mom, and it stops them from becoming as unwell if they encounter the flu virus.
A type of seasonal flu called H3N2 comes around every winter. But this summer it acquired 7 new mutations, which seems to make it better at evading our immune defences, and that led to the flu season beginning earlier than usual in the UK and other countries. This afternoon, the latest flu statistics are due to be released, so we should get a clearer picture of where things stand. Data released last week suggests the initial steep rise in infections was starting to stabilise. Flu, though, can be unpredictable, and the advice to pregnant women is clear: to get vaccinated as soon as possible. Pregnant women are more likely than the general population to suffer complications from flu, whilst babies are more likely to be admitted to hospital. Tim Moffat, BBC News.
The King has chosen Westminster Abbey as the location for this year's Christmas Day broadcast. It was filmed in the Lady Chapel in the Abbey, the burial place for 15 kings and queens, and the key theme of his message is pilgrimage. It's the second time the King's chosen to be outside a royal residence to deliver his Christmas Day broadcast, which is written by the monarch. It'll be broadcast at 3 p.m. on BBC Radio and Television on Christmas Day UK time. Well, it is already Christmas Day in the Western Pacific, including New Zealand, and millions of people are on the move around the world. Here in the UK, there's extra pressure on road, rail, air and ferry services. How smoothly are those journeys proving? Well, let us find out. Simon Calder, travel correspondent of The Independent, is travelling himself and has made it from Manchester Airport, where we spoke a short time ago. And you're in Preston in Lancashire, near where I grew up, the lovely county of Lancashire. Well done, Simon. So how's it looking? I know you've actually been looking at the skies for us globally. How's it looking?
Well, actually, I've been going around all the big hubs. So starting in the UK, London Heathrow, Paris Charles de Gaulle, Amsterdam, going across to Istanbul, Dubai, Doha, Hong Kong, Singapore, and the big North American hubs. Things are looking remarkably good. I'm kind of touching wood and hoping I'm not tempting fate, but compared with many other build-ups that we've had to Christmas, it's looking pretty good. Just the odd cancellation I'm seeing in places like Sydney and Amsterdam, but really nothing that the travel industry cannot cope with. And hopefully that will continue all the way through, because of course it's maximum pressure. Everybody invested in their journeys, desperate to get where they need to be. I've been speaking to a few people this morning, one of whom arrived back from Australia 2 days late due to delays and cancellations, but he was happy to be back for Christmas. And as you say, already Christmas Day in places like Auckland, and things fairly smooth in the South Pacific, I'm glad to say.
That's good to hear. And London's already lovely and quiet. Lots of people leave at this time of year. How's the rail situation looking?
Well, as long as you're not on the wanting to catch the 12:47 from here in Preston to Manchester Airport, or indeed you're not trying to catch a cross-country train, then you're going to be doing pretty well. I don't know why this particular Transpennine Express is cancelled, but we have had problems on the West Coast Main Line today, and more specifically the cross-country network, which links England, Wales and Scotland via Birmingham New Street. All week they've had problems with staff shortage and cancelling or curtailing dozens of trains. So for instance, the Glasgow to Plymouth train is only running from Edinburgh as far as Bristol. Now, combine that with the fact that trains run down their timetables early on tonight. For instance, the last train from London to either Edinburgh or Glasgow is at 4:30 today, and that spells potential problems. You need to check, if you are travelling by train, that you will be able to complete your journey. And if you happen to be on board that one of those cross-country trains and there's a problem and it stops short of its destination, the company has told me that they will actually make sure that there's road transport to get people where they need to be by midnight. And a reminder, no trains anywhere in the UK tomorrow, apart from a little shuttle service between the terminals at Heathrow Airport.
Simon Calder, I hope your travels go well. Thank you very much indeed for being with us. Thank you. We're going to take a quick break ourselves now, around the world and across the UK. This is BBC News. Now, on Christmas Eve, exactly 100 years ago, Winnie the Pooh first appeared in print in the UK as a story in the London Evening News. Well, now fans are preparing for a year of centenary celebrations. So our arts correspondent David Silito went on a Winnie the Pooh pilgrimage with one of the bear's biggest fans.
Giles, you're taking me to Pooh Bridge.
I'm taking you to Pooh Bridge, known really as Pooh Sticks Bridge now.
Giles Brandreth and a walk in Pooh Country, the forest that inspired the stories for the beginning of this anniversary year, which has inspired him to write his own book about Pooh and the author A.A. Milne.
You love Pooh?
I don't just love Pooh, I just love walking here. This was for A.A. Milne, Christopher Robin, the whole family. This was their enchanted place. Coming downstairs now, bump, 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 and ready to be introduced to you, Winnie the Pooh. Let's take a selfie of us with Piglet. Be more Pooh! Yay!
And along the way we bumped into family after family carrying piglets and poos.
Merry Christmas, by the way. Hey!
The largest held by 5-year-old Robin.
Is this your poo? It's your mum's poo. Oh, you've got the family poo.
My husband bought me Pooh Bear when I was at university, and also a Pooh Bear onesie.
So you're very definitely a poo family, aren't you? You couldn't not bring them up with poo.
No. I mean, I wouldn't allow my children
No.
to grow up without it, no.
And the short story that began it all is here in the Wren Library in Cambridge, where I and the current official Pooh author, Kate Reardon, were given a chance to see the original manuscript.
So this is it, isn't it?
Winnie the Pooh, yeah. Here is Big Bear coming downstairs now, bump, bump, bump on the back of his head.
So your job these days is writing poo?
Yes, daunting, isn't it? That's why I'm feeling a bit funny looking at this. Yes, I've been lucky enough to be asked to write some of the official prequels and sequels, just to keep Pooh very current and in everyone's imagination, so we'd never forget this. And hopefully also to always bring people back to the original. Oh, this is interesting.
And if there's one person who truly understands the power of Pooh,
you're braver than you believe, smarter than you seem.
it's Jim Cummings, the voice of Disney Pooh, here reading to his grandson.
Pooh touches people, doesn't he?
He does. He does. You know, I'll do a talk or two here and there, or a convention or what have you. And, you know, they'll say, well, what would Pooh say? And I would say, well, Pooh would say that I hope you're having a lovely day. And all of a sudden, you know, there are tears that well up, and it's just, you know, I give out a lot of hugs.
This is the bridge.
And of course our walk could only end one way, a game of Pooh sticks.
Will the big stick hit the little stick? Hey!
Ooh, we're down with some.
I made a bigger splash.
Look at that.
Storm.
That is a winning stick.
This is my kind of Christmas.
And at the beginning of this anniversary year, they are expecting many Pooh pilgrims. David Soletto, BBC News, Ashdown Forest.
Oh, lovely. Now, it is a tradition that's been going strong for 70 years. Children around the world have been watching Santa on his rounds at Christmas Eve with the help of a special tracker. It all began with a simple misprint on a department store advert in the US back in the 1950s. Fiona Lambden has the story.
Whether you know him as Father Christmas, Santa, or even St. Nick, many of us have been busy making sure our wish lists were in on time.
To Santa, please get me some marshmallows and a Merry Christmas. To Santa, for Christmas, can I please have a air up? One of those hats that pop up. To Santa, can I have roller skates and a Lego set?
It looks like Santa is delivering presents to the good boys and girls of Shanghai, China.
With Christmas now just hours away, trackers around the world are keeping a very close eye on Father Christmas as he makes his way across the globe.
We love tracking Father Christmas on Christmas Eve. We watch him really every few hours. We check in, the children get really excited, and it's just a really fun thing to do with them and build the excitement, especially just before they go to bed when they're really ramped up and you're like, there he is, he's on his way.
Yeah, they absolutely love it, and hopefully try and get them in bed a few hours before he arrives.
NORAD is able to keep pinpoint accuracy on the heat signature from Rudolph's nose.
And over in the United States, their Aerospace Defense Command is once again using its radar and satellites to chart his progress. A tradition that's been going strong for 70 years. It all began back in 1955 with a simple typo. A department store placed a newspaper advert inviting children to phone Santa. But the number was misprinted, directing callers instead to the Air Defence Command.
This is Colonel Schaub, the commander of the Combat Alert Center. Who's this? Well, now the little voice is crying. Well, is this one of Santa's helpers then? Dad finally figured out, oh, this must really be a kid. So he said, ho, 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 this is not one of Santa's helpers. This is Santa Claus. And so the kid was, oh, thank goodness, and gave him his whole Christmas list. And he said, could you bring something nice for my mommy?
And ever since, for the last 7 decades, this team has been helping children track Santa using their radar.
We have our aircraft and our radars and our satellites all positioned to track. Santa's very cooperative with us. We have pilots who have been next to him, and he'll give a wave, but he doesn't really need our help navigating. He's an expert aviator, probably the best we've seen.
You've even got special Santa cameras, haven't you?
Our pilots try to take pictures, but when we get back, there's nothing there, but they have their first-hand accounting of their encounters with Santa as he makes his way across.
This year, more than 1,000 volunteers are on hand to take calls throughout the night.
We do know that he won't stop if the children are awake, and that's usually between 8 and 9 o'clock. And I've found that the parents are very, very appreciative of our advice.
Mince pies, a glass of milk. We get a special plate and we put reindeer food on the floor, and then we get some mince pies and we put our stockings up with our names on them.
And when he does finally arrive, Father Christmas can usually expect a glass of milk, a mince pie, and of course, a carrot for Rudolph. And while his exact route does slightly change year on year, previous tracking data shows Father Christmas and his sleigh normally reach the UK late on Christmas Eve. Though remember, he'll only stop if you're asleep. Fiona Lambdin, BBC News.
That is the key thing to remember. Nikki Schiller is tracking Santa for us right now. Children have got to be asleep, as I tell mine.
Indeed.
Otherwise Santa won't come. Where is he now?
Well, shall we show you the live tracker? We've been talking about NORAD. We have the live feed in, and there you can see Santa on his sleigh being pulled by Rudolph. And can you remember all the other names of the reindeer?
Oh my goodness, you didn't warn me of this question.
No, I didn't. I had to write them. Dancer, yeah.
No, that's it.
Dasher, Prancer, Vixen, Comet, Cupid, Donna, Blitzen, and of course Rudolph.
Well done, well done.
So he is, at the moment, he's just dropped off at Nogliki in Russia, and he's basically over Russia. He's heading for Yakutsk. The tracker says in 1 minute and 23 seconds. So hopefully the kids there.
In the South Pacific and New Zealand.
Well, that's the magic of Santa, because it will be coming up to midnight in Sydney, so he will have been dropping off presents there. The nice thing about the NORAD tracker as well, Geeta, is that it tells you how many gifts have been delivered so far, and it's going up very, very quickly. At the moment, it's 669,500,000, 600,000, 700,000, 800,000. So you can see how many presents he's having to drop off very quickly. I think the thing, when I was growing up, getting me to go to bed was quite difficult when Santa was arriving. So I think the tracker is so useful for parents because you can see where he is. And if you're not asleep, he's not going to drop those presents off and come down the chimney.
And if you're wondering how the reindeer and Santa can get through so many mince pies and carrots, well, they need all that energy if they're pulling and delivering all those presents.
Of course, millions and millions of presents being dropped off every second that we're talking. Of course, they're going to need that sustenance. And it always used to be glass of milk, carrot and mince pie in my house that we used to leave out for Santa and the reindeer.
We still do, along with stockings.
Of course, of course. We should say that there are other trackers, because Google run a Santa tracker as well. They worked with NORAD for a few years because of the GPS data and Google Earth and all the things, all the tech side, because the Santa tracker has updated over the years. You know, when it first started, kids would ring and find out where he was. And as we heard in that report from Fiona, you can still do that. There is a phone number that you can ring, and those 1,000 or so volunteers from the American and Canadian forces do answer the calls from children. But of course, now in this technology world, it's on YouTube, it's everywhere. And and Google offer one as well, a Santa tracker with presents, but the original one is the one, as we've been hearing, that NORAD operate, and they are going strong. 679 million presents have now been dropped off.
And have young people in your life written to Father Christmas this year?
Of course you write to Father Christmas. Even I still write to Father Christmas.
And are you wearing
yes,
that
exactly.
jumper when you send the letter?
Exactly. When I write out my wishes, dear Santa, please may I have.
Yes.
Of course I'm going to be wearing one. The whole newsroom is in a festive mood.
And yes, and even for those who are working on Christmas Day, as of course some of our lovely colleagues will be here in the newsroom, Christmas jumpers compulsory tomorrow?
I would say so. I'm not here tomorrow. I'm lucky I've got a day off. But I know one of our members of staff, Chris Cook, wears a Christmas jumper every day of December.
I have noticed quite a few.
He has a whole wardrobe.
Happy Christmas to you, Nikki. Happy Christmas to everybody.
I hope Santa arrives for you.
Thank you, so do I. We're back in a few minutes. I'm Geeta Gurumurthy. This is BBC News.
Hello there. No big changes weather-wise day on day as we head throughout the Christmas period. It's looking cold, dry. There'll be lots of wintry sunshine and there'll be a chilly easterly wind blowing very brisk towards the south. You can see that tight squeeze on the isobars here. High pressure remains dominant, so it should stay dry. But with the wind coming in from the North Sea, then there's always more cloud towards the eastern facing coast. Still some more lingering fog perhaps across northwest Scotland as we head through this afternoon. Now, with the added wind chill, it's going to feel colder than these numbers suggest, and they're already lower than they were yesterday, 5 to 8 degrees Celsius for most, with possibly gale force gusts blowing through parts of the Channel coast. Now, through tonight, we'll keep the same pattern. There will be some areas of cloud, especially in the east, but some long clear spells, again some more fog across northwest Scotland. But in the sheltered spots, there could be a bit of frost developing, perhaps with temperatures dropping below freezing for some. So there could be something white on the ground into Christmas Day morning, and just a small chance of 1 or 2 snowflakes falling, particularly across the Channel Islands if we do get some showers here. But the air is dry. There'll be lots of wintry sunshine for Christmas Day itself. Again, some areas of cloud for northeast England and across eastern Scotland, but it's going to feel sub-zero for many with the added wind chill towards the south. Same again on Boxing Day. For the full forecast, check the BBC Weather app.
The wash of blue, that colour of nature, the seas, the sky, it is so immersive.
A lot of the fantasy that I have read is unsatisfactory for me because it's not interested in psychology, it's not interested in how people think or feel. I'm interested in people and the way they grow.
If you are fully in the moment, you are totally responding in the moment to everything that's happening. And when you're doing theatre, that can change night after night. It's a live, it's living, breathing, active thing.
I suppose to the outside world, the most visible part of the London Film Festival is the red carpet. And this year it brought out some of the biggest names in the film industry.
I think there is too little architecture in this world. We desperately need places that bring peace, that bring positivity.
Inspiring arts and culture. Watch on iPlayer.
The ceasefire is expected to start tomorrow morning in Gaza, opening its 72-hour window for the hostages to be freed.
These are among the lucky few Sudanese. Just across the border in Darfur, famine has been declared, and there are fears that things are going to get way worse.
That's where the plane crashed, and literally there's a row of buildings that have been completely charred.
You can retrace Hurricane Melissa's path. It ripped through these hills. The trees snapped like twigs, and more than 1,000 homes destroyed.
Donbass is now firmly on the negotiating table. So for the people who've lived here for generations, these may be permanent goodbyes.
So if I very quickly take my mask off, the air is absolutely thick with smoke. They're having to stand and watch these properties burn. It is a losing battle.
The return of the Lionesses. Here at home, thousands of people lining up and down the Mall. This team means the world to them.
Live from London, this is BBC News. President Zelensky reveals details of the latest draft deal to end the war in Ukraine that has been negotiated with the US. Russia is currently reviewing the proposal. European Union countries condemn a US decision to impose visa bans on 5 people, including a former top EU tech regulator. A British teenager has been reportedly stabbed to death in Portugal. A 6.1 magnitude earthquake has struck Taiwan. There are no immediate reports of damage. Festivities return to Bethlehem in the occupied West Bank after being scaled back for 2 years due to the war in Gaza. This is The Scene Live. And Santa is on his way. We track his movements live. Hello, I'm Geeta Gurumurthy. Thanks for being with us. We begin with developments from Kiev. President Zelensky has revealed details of a draft deal to try and end the war in Ukraine that has been negotiated with the US and is currently being reviewed by Russia. The 20-point document includes security guarantees for Ukraine from the US, NATO and Europe, but Mr. Zelensky says the question of territory is still unresolved. He's signalled a willingness to create a demilitarised zone monitored by peacekeepers. Under the new plan, Ukraine would stage a presidential election only after signing any deal. In his nightly video address, President Zelensky said they were in contact with US officials and that Ukraine had never been an obstacle to peace.
We are working actively and doing everything necessary to ensure that the documents come to fruition and that they are realistic. The key is that Russia must not sabotage this diplomacy and must take ending the war 100% seriously. If it doesn't, then additional pressure on Russia must follow. The world has all the instruments needed to make that pressure effective and ensure that peace is achieved. I thank everyone who is helping.
Well, the Russia editor for BBC Monitoring, Vitaly Shevchenko, gave me his take on the published proposal.
The issue of whether Ukraine will have to give up territory for a promise of peace, that's still unresolved. President Zelensky said that there are currently 2 options that are being considered. Option 1, which Ukraine seems to favour, is freezing the current contact line. The second option, for which Russia has been pushing and which the United States appears to be supporting, would require a withdrawal of Ukrainian forces from the eastern region of Donbass. Now, Volodymyr Zelensky said that we really don't like the word withdrawal. So the way the Americans are framing it is that there will be a demilitarized zone or an economic zone of some sort in Donbass. But it's essentially amounts to the same thing, that Ukrainians will have to pull back from their positions currently held in Donbass. Volodymyr Zelensky said that if this is the option that gets agreed on, it will then be put to a referendum in Ukraine, which may possibly coincide with a presidential election, which is another point backed by the Russians and apparently the Americans. So what is Ukraine getting in exchange? Volodymyr Zelensky said that there would be security guarantees provided by the United States, NATO, and Europe. He said these guarantees would be, and I quote, mirrored by Article 5. They will resemble Article 5 very closely. So Article 5, as we know, is the article in NATO rules that says an attack on one is an attack on all. And that suggests that should Russia attack Ukraine again, all those guarantors of security will somehow respond. Quite how they will respond is not clear. The ceasefire or the end of hostilities will be monitored, according to this draft, by an international force, a military force, and this is a point that Russia has rejected very strongly, has been saying for months that it completely does not accept any sort of deployment of Western troops to Ukraine. So what we've got here is a plan, or a draft plan, worked out by the Americans and the Ukrainians with lots of things that haven't been ironed out, but it's a plan that Russia has not accepted. Parts of it are extremely unlikely to be accepted by Russia. The latest we've heard from Moscow is that the Russian negotiator Kirill Dmitriev, who also held talks separately with Americans in Florida, he said that he reported back to Vladimir Putin about what he discussed with American negotiators, and the Russian president is considering the suggestions.
Vitaly Shevchenko there. The Russian authorities say 2 police officers have been killed by an explosion while trying to arrest a person in Moscow. An official statement said the suspect also died when they detonated a device near a police car. The blast happened in the same area where a senior Russian general was killed by a car bomb on Monday. Ukraine hasn't confirmed whether it was involved in Fanil Savarov's death. France, Germany and the European Union have all condemned a decision by the United States to impose visa bans on the former EU Commissioner Thierry Breton and 4 others involved in regulating tech companies. The US State Department announced the move on Tuesday, accusing Mr. Breton and the others of leading efforts to censor Americans online. Mr. Breton, a former top European Commissioner tech regulator, suggested a witch hunt was taking place. France's President Macron has launched a blistering attack, posting on social media that the measures amounted to intimidation and coercion aimed at undermining European digital sovereignty. The EU Commission has also issued a strong condemnation, saying it's requested clarification from the US authorities. With me is our Global Affairs reporter, Sebastian Usher. Seb, just tell us what has been said from the Europeans in response to this move, first of all.
Well, the Europeans, as you say, have strongly condemned it. They said they're seeking to have a clarification of what the US is aiming to do with this. I mean, this revolves around essentially what the EU has brought in, which is a digital security law, which is there to try and prevent hate speech and disinformation. But the Trump administration, since it came into power earlier this year, one of its main targets has been Europe over this. I mean, we had this very clearly from the US Secretary of State Marco Rubio and the statements that he was making yesterday. He was essentially talking about radical activists, weaponized NGOs using censorship, advanced censorship crackdowns, saying this is an issue of freedom of speech, specifically for Americans. That's how he was putting it. And I think when you look at the real context, this is a specific type of American speech, which is supporters of President Trump. It's people who during COVID, for example, were giving what the EU, what some of the people who are involved in this today, who set up organizations to counter what they see as disinformation, saw as conspiracy theories then. So this is a real battleground between the current US administration and the EU over what can and can't be said on the internet and what safeguards need to be in place.
And the EU is positioning itself also as a sort of safety first place within the world on AI too, which is also at odds with a lot of the big tech companies and what they want. But how unusual is it for the US to use immigration as a form of trying to shape policy, in effect, and commercial policy?
I mean, I think we are seeing that more and more from the Trump administration, but that is one of the tools that it's using. I mean, essentially what it means is that the 5 who've been named will be banned from having visas. And also, if they are in the US at the moment, one of them, Imran Ahmed, who is in the US, could face being removed, could face deportation. We don't know whether it will reach that position. But I mean, this is not an idle threat. I mean, the Trump administration will act on this. It's a very, very powerful part of the way that it sees its mission in the world. And we've seen a big change. We've seen a big change on the social media platforms, X, Twitter, with Elon Musk, who has been targeted by some of those who've been named as one of the key, figures, one of the key elements in allowing speech, which they believe should not have that currency, which should be controlled, to be available on platforms again. And as you say, what the Trump administration is doing is not acting against the platforms, not putting sanctions on that, but using the immigration law against those that they see are countering the ability for X, for other big tech companies like that, as you say, we might see it with AI later, to limit their reach, not just in terms, I think, of freedom of speech, as the Trump administration, my supporters would see it, but also in their business activities. But this will, mean that there will be a bigger cost for these companies. So the tech companies, I think, the big tech companies are relatively behind this.
And just briefly,
Yeah.
we've also heard the US say that they're going to consider looking at everyone's social media postings, for example, if they're considering going to the US. I mean, this could have a very chilling effect, some people might say, on free speech. On the other hand, as you said, the US position is that they're trying to enable free speech.
Yes, I mean, this is an irony that from the perspective of those who have been today named in this, I mean, Claire Melford, who's one of those who's been named of it, has specifically said that, saying it's deeply, deeply ironic that members, I won't use the phrase that she uses, but the Trump administration is missing the irony of decrying what she calls speech suppression while using state power to silence critics engaging in protected speech. And you could say that these new rules about getting visas could be part of that if you see it from that perspective.
Sebastian Usher, thank you very much indeed for coming in. Thanks. Now, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor is facing renewed calls to cooperate with American authorities after the release of thousands more files relating to the convicted paedophile, the late Jeffrey Epstein. Among them is an email thought to be from the former Duke of York asking about, quote, inappropriate friends. He has repeatedly denied any wrongdoing. Alison Friedman reports.
Another release of documents and more questions raised about Andrew Mountbatten Windsor and his relationship with the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. More specifically, what he was doing on trips in his role as trade envoy. In an email, which appears to be from the former prince to Ghislaine Maxwell in 2001, the sender, who is signed as A, asks, "Have you found me some new inappropriate friends?" Maxwell replies she's only been able to find appropriate friends. Months later, emails again appearing to be between the two discuss an upcoming trip to Peru. An email from a tour guide asking about the girls, how old is he, is forwarded to A. He replies, "As for the girls, well, I'll leave that entirely to you and Juan Esteban." There's no evidence of criminal activity in these exchanges.
These were on taxpayer-funded trips to promote British trade. These weren't holidays. So I would like two things. One is a full parliamentary investigation into Andrew's time as a trade envoy from 2001 to 11, and also all the papers relating to that period to be released. I spent 4 or 5 frustrating years trying to get the government here to release anything. At least we've got something from the States.
The Epstein files have been released in the name of transparency, but much of the material has been heavily redacted, something that's been criticised by Epstein survivors.
It is very simple. Redact our names and unredact the powerful, the elite men that are out there and that are continuing to doing these horrible things to these women they have done it to us and they will continue to do so. Please look at us as your children.
You seem utterly convinced you're telling the truth. Would you be
Andrew Mountbatten Windsor said in a BBC interview in 2019 that he would be willing to cooperate in an FBI investigation into Epstein if advised to do so by lawyers. He's repeatedly denied any wrongdoing.
Why would he be unwilling to help them to achieve their goal of truth and transparency? The silence from Andrew is deafening, and I really feel it's inexcusable for a former member of royalty.
With Christmas Day and the King's speech almost upon us, these new documents will no doubt be an unwelcome distraction for the royals. Alison Freeman, BBC News.
Andrew Mountbatten Windsor has repeatedly denied all wrongdoing and says he did not see, witness or suspect any behaviour of the sort that subsequently led to Epstein's arrest and conviction. The BBC has contacted his team for a response. Around the world and across the UK, this is BBC News.
この81歳になってね、まだ原爆の影響がまだいつどこに何が出るか分かんないような心配をするような状況。これが原爆の恐ろしさなんです。
What was going through my mind that Monday morning was all of the places that could have been affected. Why specifically some pokey town in the middle of nowhere?
Without bringing new people into the game and inspiring the younger generations, the game won't continue.
We take in about 150,000 tonnes of waste per annum. There's a bit of out of sight, out of mind.
He'll join a 6 to 12 week program of rehabilitation designed to get people off drugs and into work.
Documentaries from around the world. Watch on BBC iPlayer.
Reports from Portugal say a teenage British boy has been stabbed to death. 13-year-old Alfie Hallett died following the incident that took place in the city of Tomar in the centre of the country. With me is our correspondent Jonathan Josephs. Jonathan, tell us more.
Geeta, details are still emerging, but this looks like a rather tragic Christmas for this one family in particular. This all happened in a place called Cáceres, which is on the outskirts of Tomar, about 2 hours north of Lisbon. We've had a statement from the Portuguese police which confirms the death of a 13-year-old boy, saying that he was indeed stabbed to death. Local media have named him as Alfie Hallett, and they also say that his mother was a 43-year-old English woman. Now, she's been treated in hospital, and police say that she'd showed signs of having been restrained and assaulted. Neighbours who've spoken to local media described shouting and say that she had managed to escape in some distress, it should be said. Now, when police arrived at the house, it seemed that the alleged perpetrator, who the police say was the woman's former partner, tried to blow himself up with perhaps a gas canister. That led to his death and to injury to a police officer. Now, the police have also said that this alleged perpetrator had already served a prison sentence for aggravated homicide, and that the family had been flagged following domestic violence cases which had been registered in the last few years. Alfie himself was a keen basketball player, it seems, and the local club have paid tribute to him, saying on social media that he'd played his last game on Saturday and had played so well, seeming like he knew it was his last game, and that they wanted to point out how much they loved him and that he would always be in their hearts. Now, here in the UK, the Foreign Office have told us that they are aware of an incident in Portugal. They are working with the authorities there and stand by ready to provide assistance.
Jonathan Josephs, thanks very much indeed. A 6.1 magnitude earthquake has struck Taiwan's southeastern coastal county of Taitung. The quake struck at a depth of just over 10 kilometres. It caused some buildings to shake further north in the capital Taipei, but the island's weather administration says there are no immediate reports of damage. Bethlehem is marking Christmas for the first time since the beginning of the war in Gaza. Following the recent ceasefire, celebrations have returned, symbolised by the lighting of the city's traditional giant Christmas tree. These are the live pictures there, as you can see. And festivities, of course, returning to the occupied West Bank, but conditions still difficult in Gaza, including for its tiny Christian community. Well, earlier I spoke to our correspondent Amir Nada, who's watching the celebrations in Bethlehem.
Well, we're very glad to be joined by the Mayor of Bethlehem, Meher Kanawati. I hope the viewers can hear us above the sound of the marching bands. Down below is a manger square. They're heading into the Church of the Nativity, where tonight midnight mass will be taking place. Now, Mayor, Bethlehem is obviously home to one of the largest Palestinian Christian communities, but we haven't seen celebrations like this for 2 years, with many people's minds on loved ones in Gaza. Can you give us a feeling, encapsulate the feeling here today, what today means to people here?
You know, the message this season, or this Christmas, was going to be the message of hope, the message that people needed to hear, to have, in order to have hope for a better tomorrow. Yes, we are dying in Gaza and in other cities in Palestine. Yes, we are targeted. Yes, we are facing immense hardships because of the occupation. But at the same time, we also love to live, love life, and eagerly looking forward to great peace and justice that will prevail here in this land, so we can share it and prosper and also live in dignity and live in peace.
And we can see obviously that today's celebrations, it's a day for children as well, it's a day for young people. There are 23 marching bands, you told me. Can you tell me about the role of young people in the Christmas celebrations here in Bethlehem today?
You know, after 2 years of silence, reigniting the spirit of Christmas brought hope to the people of Bethlehem and to all of the people of Palestine, including Gaza. You know, here we have, as you said, 23 groups of scouts, 4,500 scouts are marching in Bethlehem. We have the hotels are totally overbooked in the city of Bethlehem. And this is also another message that Bethlehem is safe and everything in Bethlehem is waiting for pilgrims and tourists to come back. And this will help strengthening the resilience of the locals.
The Mayor of Bethlehem there speaking to Amir Nada. Well, over this festive period, we're speaking to faith leaders in the region all day. And Mustafa Abu Sway, member of the Islamic Waqf Council from the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem, told us how revered today's events are.
It is, of course, very significant. These are special times the Christians are celebrating. But besides of course, the religious aspect of these celebrations, the general atmosphere is still bearing on these festivities. You don't want to spoil it for the kids who need a sense of relief, hope. The mayor of Bethlehem needs to be hopeful and tourism to return. But there was an ecumenical message from leaders of the Catholic and Protestant churches here in Jerusalem, voicing their optimism, but also at the same time their concern for the Christian community and the larger Palestinian community. They did mention the aftermath of the the war in Gaza, after the destruction, after they did mention even the word genocide. One could see, if one could only see the wind blowing these so-called tents. They are nothing but pieces of plastic. They're not good for rain. They're not good for cold. They mentioned the Taiba and Jifna Christian villages in the West Bank and the settler terrorism, really. So their press release laments the changes that took place in Jerusalem over what they have also called in this ecumenical press release the Judaization of Jerusalem, rather than preserving the pluralistic fabric of the historical status quo in Jerusalem, the loss of this sense of pluralism. And we indeed see it that how the Israeli authorities, and by the way, of course, we talk about Israeli occupation. This is still the legal status of these areas as part of what was occupied in 1967. The relationship with the churches and, of course, with the Al-Aqsa Mosque is definitely not healthy.
Mustafa Abu Sway from the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem. Of course, Israel does deny those charges of genocide, and Benjamin Netanyahu has, in fact, accused Hamas of violating the Gaza ceasefire agreement today. Both sides accusing each other of violating that fragile ceasefire, but it is holding for now. Let me show you pictures from Hawaii and live pictures from Mount Kilauea erupting in Hawaii. The summit eruption reached its 1-year anniversary yesterday, with fountains reaching more than 1,000 feet high. A glow and intermittent spatter were seen all day from north to south vents, and then later the vents started shooting the fountains 70 feet high up in the air, reaching a height of 1,400 feet eventually. Those images still coming in. More images for you. And it is a tradition that's been going strong for 70 years. Children around the world have been watching Santa on his rounds on Christmas Eve with the help of a special tracker. It all began with a simple misprint on a department store advert in the US back in the 1950s. Let's see where Santa is now. He's just passing Papua New Guinea, although of course he is magical and can be in multiple places at the same time. And you can see that tracker. He's dropping many, many gifts for children all around the world. And more Santas, this time surfing in Florida on Cocoa Beach. People from all over are gathering today in Cocoa Beach, Christmas Eve, to celebrate as people take to the water in their Santa suits to surf the waves. And we will leave you with those lovely sunny pictures from Florida. Happy Christmas. This is BBC News.
Hello there. No big changes weather-wise day on day as we head throughout the Christmas period. It's looking cold, dry. There'll be lots of wintry sunshine and there'll be a chilly easterly wind blowing very brisk towards the south. You can see that tight squeeze on the isobars here. High pressure remains dominant, so it should stay dry. But with the wind coming in from the North Sea, then there's always more cloud towards the eastern facing coast. Still some more lingering fog perhaps across northwest Scotland as we head through this afternoon. Now, with the added wind chill, it's going to feel colder than these numbers suggest, and they're already lower than they were yesterday, 5 to 8 degrees Celsius for most, with possibly gale force gusts blowing through parts of the Channel coast. Now, through tonight, we'll keep the same pattern. There will be some areas of cloud, especially in the east, but some long clear spells, again some more fog across northwest Scotland. But in the sheltered spots, there could be a bit of frost developing, perhaps with temperatures dropping below freezing for some. So there could be something white on the ground into Christmas Day morning, and just the small chance of 1 or 2 snowflakes falling, particularly across the Channel Islands if we do get some showers here. But the air is dry. There'll be lots of wintry sunshine for Christmas Day itself. Again, some areas of cloud for northeast England and across eastern Scotland, but it's going to feel sub-zero for many with that added wind chill towards the south. Same again on Boxing Day. For the full forecast, check the BBC Weather app.
This is not your typical farm.
This is one of the most incredible things I've ever done. Why are we so suited and booted for this task? I better not touch it anymore.
I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
Tech Now. Watch on BBC iPlayer.
A brazen break-in at the Louvre. Thousands of mobile phones being snatched and shoplifting at record levels. I look at the economics of theft and how global forces are shaping what gets stolen and where it ends up. That's this week on Talking Business, here on BBC News.
The mass shooting here in Bondi has changed Australia forever. A targeted attack on the Jewish community. For many, this country no longer feels safe. Under pressure, the government's introducing reforms on gun laws and hate speech. But is it too little, too late? For more, join me, Katie Watson, on BBC News.
A journalist from the Sydney Morning Herald describes the challenges of covering the Bondi Beach attack. As details started to come through, they had the job of covering a mass shooting in a place that they know intimately. We'll find out how they did it. It's all on the media show on BBC News.
Did it feel that the X-Files somehow restricted your career as an actor?
It certainly did when I was filming. You know, we had such short hiatuses, and I had a small child by the time we were in our second season even, and so you know, doing anything at all during that period of time was madness. And yet I was approached by Terence Davies to do The House of Mirth, and the opportunity was so great that I said yes to that. I knew that I wanted my career to have that scope, and I knew that it was important to show myself and other people that I could do something other than Scully.
Watch on iPlayer.
how BBC News reflects on significant events for the royal family in 2025, the royal year.
The King shares good news on his cancer journey and champions the importance of screening.
Early diagnosis, quite simply, saves lives.
Meanwhile, his younger brother Andrew loses both his titles and his home. Looking out for the environment, Prince William is welcomed to Brazil. His brother Prince Harry sits down with the BBC.
I would love reconciliation with my family. There's no point in continuing to fight anymore.
And getting in the festive spirit at the Princess of Wales annual carol concert. The shadow of cancer has hung over the King since his diagnosis was announced in February 2024. He has continued to fulfil a busy schedule both in the UK and elsewhere, combining duties with regular treatment. 6 months after first having to cancel a visit to this Birmingham hospital due to an adverse reaction to his treatment, the visit did go ahead. He told one patient with regard to his recovery that it wasn't too bad. At a palace reception for those affected by cancer, he released a deeply personal message, talking of diagnosis being a daunting and frightening experience. And then in December, the most significant update yet on his own condition.
Today I am able to share with you the good news that thanks to early diagnosis, effective intervention and adherence to doctors' orders, my own schedule of cancer treatment can be reduced in the new year. This milestone is both a personal blessing and a testimony to the remarkable advances that have been made in cancer care in recent years. Testimony that I hope may give encouragement to the 50% of us who will be diagnosed with the illness at some point in our lives.
The King's words reportedly led to a significant increase in people logging on to an online cancer checker. It was a positive health update and a campaigning message.
In October, the world's media set up camp here at these rather unassuming gates near Windsor. The reason? About half a mile beyond them is Royal Lodge, the mansion the King's younger brother Andrew has called home for the last 20 years or so. Once again, he was at the centre of a global media storm.
The then Prince Andrew and ex-wife Sarah Ferguson arrived at the funeral of the Duchess of Kent, unaware that the following month they would both have their titles and home in Windsor removed. It came after years of accusations and allegations stemming from their friendship with a convicted paedophile. Andrew's continued relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, the disgraced US financier, after his child sex abuse conviction had already led to him having to step back from royal duties. In 2019, his attempt to justify the relationship and lack of apology to Epstein's victims in an interview with the BBC proved hugely damaging. 2 years later, Andrew settled a court case with Virginia Giuffre, the woman who alleged she was trafficked by Epstein and had sex with Andrew when she was 17 years old. He has always